That hurts, you know?
Seemed like you really wanted to talk.
How observant, senor. Now, say, you got a smoke?
Welcome to this deep dive exploring the lore of one of the most intriguing characters in the Resident Evil universe, Dr. Luis Serra, a former researcher for the Umbrella Corporation and later the Los Iluminados cult. Luis is a complex figure with a mysterious backstory and an important role into the sophistication of the Las Plagas parasite. In this video, we'll be shining a light into the details of Luis's tragic past and exploring his motivations and influences throughout his life, showing that there is much more to Dr. Luis Serra than meets the eye. Luis's story interestingly begins in the same village as the setting of Resident Evil 4, Valdelobos. He was born and raised there, and during his childhood, the villagers were not the violent cultists that they became when he returned. The villagers, including Luis's family, were devout Catholics who were traditional and lived a rural lifestyle. His mother tragically died in childbirth, leaving him to be raised by his grandfather, who made a living as a hunter. His father is never mentioned. From a young age, Luis's talent radiated in the reclusive and isolated village in which he resided. He had a keen curiosity and a thirst for knowledge towards the natural world around him. He would often follow his grandfather on hunting trips and had also become enchanted by the fairy tales and stories which were told to him by his grandfather. Most notably, the literary masterpiece of Don Quixote. We can delve deeper into this when we read the journal his grandfather left behind from around 1979. 3 years ago, my beloved daughter passed away, shortly after giving birth to a son. Since then, the boy has grown considerably. He is a very curious child and has a true thirst for knowledge. He even tries to follow after me when I go out hunting. I can't take my eyes off him for a second. Whenever we walk in the forest, he always asks me to tell stories. He's very fond of Don Quixote. Although he's still small, the boy is smart and observant beyond his years. If he weren't stuck here, he might have become a scholar. There is further evidence of this when we read the file Village Records Volume 1, which was written by a young boy entrusted by the elder of the village to chronicle events. He writes the following on Luis. There is a young boy who lives in the cabin by the lake with his grandfather. It seems that his mother was called to heaven upon his birth. His grandfather doesn't talk much, but the lad is very bright and spirited. He told me a story about a knight who rides a donkey again today. Through these journal entries, we can look through a window into the past of Luis's experiences and how they have molded and influenced his character as an adult. The Knight Who Rides a Donkey is another reference to Don Quixote, a novel published in 1605. It follows a man who becomes enamored with tales of chivalry and romance that he decides to become a knight himself despite not having any formal training or experience. Accompanied by his loyal squire Sancho Panza, Don Quixote sets out on a series of quests and adventures, often mistaking everyday objects and people for fantastical beings from his favourite chivalric stories. One of the novel's key themes is idealism. Put simply, idealism is a philosophy that emphasizes the importance of ideas and the mind in shaping our perception of reality. It suggests that our ideas and thoughts have the power to shape the way we see and understand the world. In simpler terms, idealism is the belief that our thoughts and ideas are powerful and can influence the world around us. Therefore, it is entirely reasonable to believe that Luis developed a greater sense of idealism as a coping mechanism to deal with the tragic set of circumstances he was born into. He was an orphan in an isolated village with only his grandfather to look after him. His higher sense of perception only made this more apparent. In fact, we can see him quote directly from his favorite book in his interactions with Leon. He sometimes even takes Leon as a surrogate for the squire Sancho Panza.
In that case, you better get serious.
Harsh words for a squire. In that case, we know what we have to do. Then come, Sancho Panza. Let us rescue the Princess Dulcinea.
You're gonna hurt yourself.
Hey, that was my lance. Okay, we hurry, I get it.
Then tragedy strikes again for poor Luis. While out hunting, his grandfather is attacked and bitten by a wolf. Although he makes it back to his cabin alive, he is afflicted by an unknown illness related to the wolf bite. His condition then deteriorates and the villagers start to share their concerns as rumors spread to the then current village chieftain that Luis's grandfather is going mad. The village chieftain then consults the priest Bitorez Mendez to decide on a solution. We can again find writings on this in both the grandfather's journal and the village kids' records. Luis's grandfather's journal reads, I was a careless fool. I could have sworn I shot clean through the wolf's head, and yet it lunged at me. I was able to make it back to the cabin, but my wound is swollen and discolored. I cannot bear seeing the boy's worried eyes. My body moves on its own, and I can hear voices inside my head. Am I going mad? I can't die now and leave the boy behind. Dear God, please protect him. In the village records, we can also find the following notes. The boy's grandfather has fallen ill, and his condition worsens every day. The boy worries terribly about him, and there are murmurs of a madness among the villagers. As I took my leave, the old man pulled me aside and said, "If anything happens, you know what to do." I could only nod in response. Here, the dread of both Luis and his grandfather is evident. It is also a testament to the strong bond they have with each other. Despite being in pain and in a desperate situation, Luis's grandfather's main concern is his grandson's well-being. We can also see an early entry into the Plaga's re-emergence in the village. Despite his grandfather being an experienced hunter and shooting the wolf through the head, he was still bitten and injured. Although one could initially assume that Luis's grandfather may have contracted rabies, the fact that the wolf survived being shot clean through the head points to the fact that the Plaga's parasite is the most likely culprit. Things get worse from there. One night when Luis is out, he returns to find that his cabin has been set ablaze, with his last remaining family member inside. In the last entry of the Village Record Volume 1, it states, "It was a terrible night. Everyone stood around the cabin and watched as it burned to the ground. The boy looked on without saying a word. Even as dawn broke, he didn't move a muscle. The next day, he was gone." After experiencing such pain, shock and horror, Luis left. He held on to his idealistic beliefs and dreamed big to deal with his pain and carried his grandfather's memory. He managed to enroll in a public university, and he used his talent to his full advantage, becoming a prodigy biologist. His potential was recognized by both his peers and lecturers, and soon he would make a name for himself, leading the then prestigious Umbrella Corporation to headhunt him. During his time working for the Umbrella Corporation, he would create some over-the-counter medications, all of which were discontinued after hitting the shelves. Despite this, he would be described as a rising star and would be assigned to Umbrella Europe's 6th laboratory, a research complex responsible for overseeing the Nemesis project. Put simply, the Nemesis project was partially responsible for the creation of one of the deadliest bioweapons by the Umbrella Corporation. This is the Nemesis T-type. The 6th laboratory, through genetic engineering, created a parasitic organism called Nemesis Alpha. The primary goal of Nemesis Alpha was a solution around the mental degradation that the original zombie T virus caused to its subjects. It attaches into the brainstem of the host and takes over the brain functions. When this happens, the infected subject can demonstrate somewhat human-level intelligence and can use weapons. Therefore, when the Nemesis Alpha parasite is injected into a standard tyrant, i.e. T-103, which is what Leon faced in Raccoon City, it paves the way for the superior weapon-wielding Nemesis T-type. This is what Jill faced. Without digressing too much, there is also another dark twist to this story that is worth mentioning. In early research of the Nemesis Alpha parasite, it was used on Lisa Trevor, the daughter of the architect who designed the mansion of the Umbrella Corporation's CEO Oswald E. Spencer. Her family was kidnapped and killed due to their knowledge on the mansion. Only she survived due to a uniquely strong immunity, and because of this, she was brutally experimented on for decades. It is one of the darkest stories in all of gaming, let alone the Resident Evil universe. However, it is unlikely that Luis was ever made aware of this. Although there is no definitive answer to the reason, Luis becomes disillusioned by the Umbrella Corporation and resigns from it. We also find out through a report on Luis Serra that he removed almost all traces of his employment there and of his whereabouts. Therefore, when he was pursued by the government about the Raccoon City virus outbreak incident, he was not found. Luis then returned to his village after many years and found it to be different than it used to be. By the time he came back, it seemed as if a cult had taken over his village. That cult was Los Iluminados. Its charismatic leader, Osmond Sadler, recruited Luis under the pretenses of leading an effort to remove and weaken the Plagas from their hosts. However, Luis later found that his research was to actually identify the plugger's weaknesses so that Sadler could get a more resilient form of the parasite created, therefore aiding in his goals of world domination. Upon learning this, Luis felt even more guilt-ridden. He contacted Ada Wong for help in escaping the lab in exchange for a vial containing an egg of the dominant species of Las Plagas. During his attempted escape, Father Bitorez Mendez, a loyal servant of Osman Sadler, catches him and stores him in his basement. This is where his and Leon's paths cross and his road to redemption begins. Throughout their time together, Luis makes several attempts to atone for his past. He is also vocal about this when Leon presses him on why he is helping.
Great, we're partners then.
Hey, why are you...
No time for any questions, the clock is ticking.
Why are you helping us?
Because it makes me feel better. Let's leave it at that. We'll contact you later.
A little hard for me to put my faith in someone who used to work for Umbrella.
So you heard, huh? Bella's done for. You don't need to worry about them anymore.
You didn't answer my question. What are you after?
I just want to feel good about myself. Make amends. Something like that.
He aids Leon in multiple battles with Ganados through their journey into the Salazar castle and promises him that he will find them the solution for the parasite that had been injected in them. He even provides them with suppressors to halt the parasite in their bodies, effectively saving their lives. As they get closer to the lab, Luis is tragically stabbed in the back by Jack Krauser, leading to a battle between Leon and Jack. When Leon is almost on the jaws of defeat, Luis then makes a final act of heroism and shoots Jack's knife out of his hand, causing him to retreat. Luis then hands his lab key to Leon and tells him to go and rid himself and Ashley of the parasite. Before his final breath, his last words are,
I'm not looking good, eh, my friend? And such a loss to the ladies of the world.
Don't talk.
Take this. The key to my laboratory. Go there and remove those damn parasites. Help Ashley. You know, I led a pretty shitty life. But now, eh? What do you think, Leon? People can change, right?
This is where his tragic story comes to an end. Through this journey, we've learned a great deal about the life of Dr. Luis Serra. His tragic past shaped him into the intelligent, curious, and idealistic person that he became. Luis's character is layered with depth, and his role in Leon's successful mission is an important one. As we've seen, his love for Don Quixote and its themes of idealism clearly influenced his perception of reality, or even was a coping mechanism for his trauma. Luis's character is a reminder of the real-world struggles that people face and how these struggles shape them.